Hello everybody and welcome to this video all about how I edit my vlogs using iMovie. If you're a subscriber to my channel and generally only interested in landscape photography, then I'm afraid this video probably isn't for you. What I suggest is you skip on, go and watch something else and then join me next Tuesday when I should have a really good vlog coming out. Now, if you're still with me and you're interested in starting your own YouTube channel, I'm about to share the process that I go through when I edit my videos. Now, this video is a follow-up to one I put out a couple of weeks ago, all about how I film when I'm out on location. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how I bring everything together in iMovie to tell a compelling story. So let's get on with it. I want to start by explaining a little bit about why I use iMovie and not something a lot more sophisticated like Adobe Premiere Pro. Now, I started my channel back in May 2017, so I've been doing this for over 2.5 years and I've put out something like 105 videos. And when I started, I didn't know if my channel was going to take off. I didn't know whether I was going to do it for a long time. So rather than invest lots of money in expensive gear that was just going to end up sitting on a shelf gathering dust, I actually started using my iPhone and some free software that came with my laptop, iMovie. Now, over time, what I've done is I've upgraded my cameras, but I found that there was absolutely no need to upgrade the software that I was using. Right, so let's jump straight into my editing workflow. Now, the first thing that I like to do for every single video is to create a new iMovie library. And this allows me to get everything nice and organized. So I have a separate library for every video that I've ever created. And once I've done that, it's time to import the footage. And again, I want to keep everything as organized as possible. So I create separate events for all the different kinds of footage that I'm going to use. So I have an event for the footage that I shot on location. I have an event for all my photographs. I have an event for music, one for screenshots, and any other kind of footage that I might want to use. Once all the footage has been imported, then it's time to start a new project and the editing process can begin. Now, I believe that the purpose of every single vlog is to tell as compelling a story as you possibly can. So the story is key and the editing process is all about trying to bring everything together to tell that compelling story. And the most important aspect of a story is what we refer to as A-roll. Now, A-roll is your primary footage. So this is generally when you're speaking to the camera. And so that's what I start with. Now, the first thing that I do is I pull my first clip down and I use the waveform to work out where I was talking. Now, sometimes I get things wrong and I have to re-record. And so a single clip may contain 3 or 4 pieces of the camera. And what I generally want is the last one when I got it right. And so I use the waveform to identify where that is. And I then trim that clip to size. And then I do that for all of the A-roll clips. And so I've got me speaking to camera all the way through and I know exactly what my story is going to be and how it's going to unfold. So once I've got my A-roll sorted, it's then time to turn my attention to the B-roll. Now, B-roll is supplementary footage that you use to help tell the story. Now, it is possible to do a vlog of just you speaking to camera, just A-roll. But that isn't going to be as interesting for the viewer as a video that's interspersed with other kinds of footage. Now, one word of warning on B-roll. It is very, very easily, particularly when you're starting out, to overdo it. So when I first started my channel, I used to have quite long sections of B-roll of me moving and walking from one location to another. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You must have seen it 1,000 times. It gets very boring for the viewer. So what I now like to do is try and keep my videos ticking over as quickly as I possibly can, using mostly A-roll with 2 different types of B-roll interspersed, and they are cutaways and transitions. The first type of B-roll that I like to use is the cutaway. So this is where the camera cuts away to another scene while you're talking and then cuts back. And I like to use it when I'm referring to something specific. So for example, if I'm saying I'm going to take a picture of this tree, I like to cut away to that tree and that reinforces with the viewer exactly what you're talking about. This morning is to spend some time exploring the tarn, looking for different compositions, and I'm particularly interested in compositions that feature Beacon, which is a small hill next to the tarn that gives the tarn its name. Now, to start with, I've come up to a small hill on the other side of the tarn, and I'm starting with a shot looking over the tarn towards the Coniston Fells in the distance. The second type of B-roll footage that I use is a transition. So this is essentially a piece of footage that is designed to link two A-roll clips together. Now, when I'm out on location, I am always making mistakes, fumbling over my words, and I find that if I try and do a long piece to camera, that increases the chance that I'm going to mess up. So what I like to do is to shoot lots of short pieces to camera and then join those together. Now, I don't want to go from one piece of A-roll to another piece of A-roll. That's not very effective. So what I like to do is insert a second piece, a piece of B-roll, so it looks like a cutaway, and then cut back to the next one, and away we go. Now, one of the slightly more advanced techniques that we can use when we're editing our video is known as the J-cut, and this is essentially where the audio element of a clip starts before the visual element. Now, I use J-cuts all the time, and they're a really handy technique that can make our videos just look a little bit more polished. Starting with a shot looking over the tarn towards the Coniston Fells in the distance. For my first shot, I just want to keep things relatively simple. So I set up this composition that has... Now, iMovie comes with a whole host of transitions built in, and they are by and large pretty naff. So I would recommend that you only use one of them, and that is the cross dissolve. And essentially what that does is that fades from one clip into the next. And that can be a really effective technique if you're trying to show the passing of time. And that's something that I do. If I jump from one location to another without anything else, then I simply use a cross dissolve to show that time has passed. I'm pretty happy with that first shot, if I'm honest. And with that shot in the bag, I'm now going to head down to the edge of the tarn and see if I can get something down there. I've made it down to the edge of the tarn. As with my A-roll, I like to get all of my B-roll inserted into my timeline before I move on to the next stage, and that's my images. So as a photographer, all of my vlogs are interspersed with my images, and to display them I like to use an effect called the Ken Burns effect. Essentially what that means is that my images start zoomed in very slightly, and then they pull out to reveal the whole image. Now, I like to have my images on screen for about 10 seconds, and so I use the Ken Burns effect for the first 5 seconds, and then I just display the image for another 5 seconds. Once I've inserted my images into the timeline, I then move on to the penultimate phase, and that is adding the music. Now, music is very important to a video. It can be the making and breaking of it. It's really important to setting the mood. However, it does take an awful lot of time to get right. And recently I've gone into the trap of using music quite sparingly. Essentially, I only really use music when I'm displaying my images. And essentially what I do is I insert a little piece of music where the image is going to appear. And I fade it up as I'm talking. We then transition to the image, and then I fade it back down again when I start talking again after the image has been displayed. It's as simple as that. I'm at F11 and I've focused in on the patch of trees that's just on the edge of the tarn. And it's just as simple as that, really, so I'm going to take the shot. I think I can work with that. I'm pretty happy with that first shot, if I'm honest. And with that shot in the bag, I'm now going to head down to the edge of the tarn and see if I can get something down there. The very final thing that I do to my videos before I export them is I adjust the volume of all my A-roll clips. Now I use a Canon M50 to record all my videos. It's what I'm using to record this one now. And I find that the volume on all the A-roll clips is just a little bit too high. So what I do is I reduce the volume of all of the clips down to about 90–91%. And that seems to be about the right balance for this camera. And then once that's done, I replay the video, I watch it all the way through, I make any little tweaks that I feel I have to make, and then I export it. Once you've exported your video, that's when the real fun begins, because it's time to upload it to YouTube. Now, the process of uploading to YouTube and getting your video ready to go live is beyond the scope of this video. But if you are interested in that, I suggest you check out videos by Sean Cannell at Think Media and Tim Schmoyer at Video Creators.